Hello Steelers, and come with me as we step into the steamy and hot jungles of Vietnam with Peter Pig's Men of Company B. This is their Vietnam set of rules, which obviously accompanies their Vietnam figure range as well. As some of you possibly have known from my hobby reports, I've been working on a Vietnam project for the last year in 2025. I completed that. That was kind of for Charlie Don't Surf, but I can also use it with other Vietnam games as well, including this one. So that's what we're going to be playing today. This is the first game on screen that I've played of this. There will be a review as well of this video of this game coming probably quite close after this video, so keep an eye out for that as well. But what this is, we're going to be playing the very basic VC game. So it's going to be an American units trying to do a sweep of a couple of villages, trying to find some caches and trying to basically win the game that way. Meanwhile, the VC are going to be getting increasing strength, and they are going to be trying to stop them in that endeavour. It's pretty simple really. That's it. What I'll do is, as always, I will show you the table, show you the layout, show you the forces involved, and talk about some of the other bits and pieces of the game, and then we'll just crack on with the game and get it started and see where we go from there, shall we? Righty ho, here's our table. So it's actually a gridded game, and it is played on a gridded mat of 5 foot by 4 foot, so it's 5 foot by 3 foot, so it's slightly smaller than your usual gaming table. It does allow you to put stuff around the table if you've got a 6 foot by 4 foot table like I have here. What you can see is we've got various patches of jungle, so each of these are basically 2 squares. The 6-inch squares so it's 12 by 6 on these on the table. We've got jungle, we've got bamboo, which is hard going. We've also got paddy fields, and then we've got a road running down the centre as well, or down the line. And then also finally we have 6 villages, and these are made up here. What you can also see on these village squares is we have a potential peasant. We've also got peasants on there as well, and also potential caches. The caches are what the US are going to be looking for throughout the game. They're going to need to get into a village square, make sure there are no VC around it, and then do a search for the cache and see if they can actually locate something. I'll talk about that later on in the game. That will come up. But we also have potential peasants as well, and as we all know, everybody is only one paycheck away from being a potential peasant. In this case, however, this is where the VC are going to be recruiting their extra men from. They start very, very light. They only have basically 1 base and a commander base. 5 of these will appear on the table over the first few turns, but once they get into the villages, they will be able to recruit peasants, and this is basically just to show that they have either recruited or haven't recruited. The US, as I say, with the caches, they're going to have to search for them. They only get 1 chance at it, so they either do or they don't. It's that simple really. Right, I shall show you the forces that are involved in this game, and then we will actually crack on with the game. So here are the US. So they are starting with, this is basically a platoon, very small platoon, and it is made up of 3 sections of infantry here. So each one of these has a basic one is a commander on the round base, including a foot base as well, so 4 of those. Platoon commander is over here, and also he has a foot base attached to him. What you can also see is as well, I've added some assets for the Americans. They get 8 points to start with, so I've taken some assets in here. What I've done is I have added an extra base here into this unit just to increase their size and their fire strength. I've also added a K9 unit over here, which will help with looking on the cache loop to see if there is any things that they can find. And then I've also increased the ability of this commander over here, so he is a better commander. So you'll see this in a minute, but normally they will get 7 dice for their actions. He will get an extra 2 for his actions as well. You'll see that as it comes up. So that's the US forces, pretty similar. I'll show you how they set up in a second once I've shown you the VC forces. Okay, here we've got the VC. This is very, very light, as you can see, as I said. So each of these is a leader with a foot base, and we've got 5 of these. 2 of these are going to begin the game on the table. They will be decided once the US have placed their figures, or once they've been basically distributed onto the table. The other 3 will arrive one at a time in the next few turns after that. So up to 3 turns after, you will get the VC. As I say, they start very small. If they are destroyed, they are destroyed. But what they're going to be trying to do is get into the villages, and recruit those potential peasants, as I mentioned previously, and that will increase their sizes up to a maximum of 6 bases, including the commander. So they could potentially get 4 more bases into these units, which will make them larger and a bit stronger than the Americans eventually, but they've got to build that strength up first of all. And then just before we do actually start, one final thing to mention is this is called the cash loop. So this is what the Americans are looking for. They need to do a successful search in a village before they get access to this, and what this has is various potential things that they can steal off the VC. So number 1 is the best one. It's a radio in this case. They also have 2 high value ones, which are here and here. These are the 2 ammunition boxes, and then we also have some low value ones, which are the rice sacks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 of those. Also included on this are 3 ambushes, and I put these either side of the best one and also intermingled down here as well. So whether they're there and there. You'll see how this works as the game goes on, so I'm not going to explain too much about it until we actually do a cache search, and a successful one. Right, I will set up the Americans and we'll crack on with the rest of the game. Okay, so the way that the Americans set up in the game, normally is, because we're in a normal 2-player game, both players will write down a number between 1 and 10, they reveal them, and then they add them up, and that is the row that the Americans start in, with this one being number 1, this one being number 10 over here. Now if you score over 10 on that addition, it loops back over. So for example, if they had 13, then you would start in row 3. Pretty simple, right? So, but however, I am playing solo, so what I'm doing is I'm going to set this up very differently, and I'm going to roll for it. So basically I'm just going to roll 2 d10s and add them together, and that is going to be the row that the Americans will start in, and I'll show you then how they start on their columns. So we have a 2 and a 6, so that is row 8. So as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Would you know it, exactly where the dice tray is. So then what we do is we then roll for, we only actually have 2 of our units on the table at the start of the game for the Americans, and the platoon commander. So 3, one of them is off the table. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to swap over the better commander for this guy over here, so he's going to be on table, and then we've got a smaller unit that's going to come on later on. So what we do is, for each of these, I roll a dice, and that is the number of the column that they start in. So we'll start with the platoon commander, because he's the most important one. He's got a 6, so of course he starts in row 6. So row 6 is going to be all the way over there, so he's stuck out in the open. Then our next one, which is going to be the big one, is in row 2, of course. 1, 2, so these are down here by the road. Now if you are more than 2 squares away from the platoon commander, it's harder for you to command. You lose command dice at the start of your turn. So these guys, they're already at a penalty, then they're going to need to get close to that platoon commander, or vice versa. And then the final one, these guys over here, they're on 6 as well. You can't have 2 units in the same square, so we're going to have to re-roll for that. And so we get a square, that's a 6 again. How many 6s? That's a 4. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So these guys have actually started in this village, which is pretty good, because that means they can now start searching. But if I can get the platoon commander over down here somewhere, that will be very useful as well. So this is the better commander, so he wouldn't have the penalty with being outside of his platoon commander's range, but as it is, it's the other guy down here isn't. But I want to bring them up anyway as security, or they might just come down here and do some searching. We'll find out. But we then go on to the VC, and what they do is they choose 2 of their starting units. So let me just clear that dice tray out, and they decide where they're going to go, and they can put these anywhere on the outside edge of the table. Now obviously it would be sensible to stay as far away from the Americans at this point, because they are pretty weak at this point, but also they want to get into some of the villages to start recruiting peasants, so they can actually build up their forces and then attack the Americans in strength. So the first one, we're going to try them in this village down here, this village square over here. So I'm just going to stick them in there. Now, what we do is we do a deviation roll, and it's an opposed roll of a d6, red being communist, blue being Americans, and whatever the difference, whoever wins this gets to choose if they want to deviate their unit, and you deviate by the exact number of the difference between the two dice. The communists, because they know the area, they get a +1 on their dice. So I'll give you an example here. This is not the roll I'm doing. I'm just going to do. So the Americans have scored a 4. The VC have scored a 1. That becomes a 2 because they know the area. So the Americans have won. So what they can do is they can say, right, okay, I'm going to deviate them, but they can only they can either leave them where they are or deviate them, and they can only deviate them by the exact difference. The exact difference being 2. So they could actually throw the peasants, the VC, all the way down here, or 1, 2 over here, closer to the Americans themselves, so they could get a chance at attacking them. As I say, so that's basically how it works. So that was just an example roll. So let me give you the actual roll, and it is 4 for 4. So the VC have actually won it. That goes up to 5. So the VC have won it. So as I said, they can now decide if they want to go on the square that they wanted to come in, or they can move, but they can also move 1 square. So if it was more advantageous and they wanted to go in here, they could do. I don't want to. I want to keep them where they are because that's where I decided they were going to come on. So they stay there. And then our other VC unit, I'm going to try to put them on in this village over here, where we got some more peasants. So once again we do the same thing, and this time the Americans got a 6, the VC have got a 2, but that increases to a 3. So now the Americans actually throw them out of the village and put them somewhere else. So they could put them 1, 2, 3 in that square there. I don't know if this one here, which is not great because it's next to the village anyway, or they could throw them here 1, 2, 3 down to this corner, which is much more advantageous because they are then quite far away from that village and also far away from this village. So that's what the Americans are going to do, stick them down there. So that is the opening part of it. We then go immediately onto the VC's turn, and they get the first turn in the game. So first things first, as I said, what we want to do is we want to recruit some peasants over here in this village. These are the guys that started in there. Now, first of all, we need to know how many peasants are in there. There's potentially up to 6 of them. So I roll the dice. There are 6 in there, so that's good. So there's a lot of recruitment to be done here. So I'm just going to mark these with dice so I know that they're there. If these get killed, then you can keep recruiting from them, but the Americans can't interrogate them if they are killed. However, we then go on to the actions. Now, each unit has a set of action dice. This starts at 7. This is your basic. There are some modifiers to this depending on what you are, so I'll just quickly go through those. So if you're a veteran, you get an extra dice. If you are raw, you get 1 less dice. If you are beyond your platoon commander, you get -2, so if that's for the White Star. The VC don't have platoon commanders. If you're carrying something like a cache, you get a -1. If the unit has got no leader, they get another -2, and for each morale failure they get -1, and if they're under artillery fire and being hammered, they get -2, and you get a minimum though of 1. So the VC are raw, so they lose 1, so they're only starting with 6 dice. Now what you do is, each action, you can do a lot of different actions, and they're either classed as easy, medium or difficult. So an example for an easy move is to move in the open. A medium move is to move in the paddy fields or in the villages or to shoot, and a difficult move is to search a village square, to assault, or call in artillery or Cassivac for the White Star, for example. So that's kind of like your examples of the different kind of actions, and you can do as many or as few of these as you want, but every time you try, you lose a dice out of your dice pool, and you're looking to get a score of whatever the actual the dice number is. So let's say, for example, the VC here, they are wanting to generate some VC from these peasants. So we start with 6 dice. This is an easy thing to do, so they only need a 3 or above on this. So we roll our dice. If any one of these gets a 3 or above, they've done it. If it doesn't, they fail. They immediately they immediately end their turn, and also everybody else in their grouping, which is the rest of their forces, only get a single dice for the rest of the turn. So it's worthwhile. You've got to have that gamble of, do I keep going or do I stop at some point? Right, so you want to be doing the hard stuff early on and then the easier stuff as the turn turns over. So first of all, we're going to try to recruit a peasant. For these guys, it's easy. I'm just going to take the potential peasants off because we've already marked up how many there are there. So let's see, we need a 3 up. Yes, we've got everything has beaten there. It doesn't matter how many win as long as you get something in there. So we've got we've recruited 1 peasant, so they go in there. I then drop the number here down to 5 because there's now only 5 left in there to go. And remember, we can only have a maximum of 6 in a VC unit. So that is our first action. We then take away a dice because they have used an action. But we're still going to try to recruit another peasant. So yes, we've got 2 5s. One of those was a failure. Doesn't matter because we passed it with at least 1 other. So there's another base. So now we're up to 4 bases. They can only recruit another 2 bases out of here if they want. We're now down to 4 dice. I still think it's a pretty easy thing to do because they're needing 3s up on 4 dice. I think it's pretty easy, so let's go for it. Yeah, they've got all of those. So we take another peasant base, stick those in there. So that takes us down to 3 potential peasants to be picked up in there, and their dice pool reduces. Now, 1, 2, 3, they've gone 5. I'm going to go for 1 more because that means that they will again have their maximum of their units, and they still need 3 up, so there's still a good chance of getting this. So there we go, 6, 6, 6 and 5. And then we get another one in. So that's another guy in there. Takes another one of these off, so that drops that. There are 2 more peasants in there that can be recruited. However, they are now at maximum. We are down to 2 action dice for these guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at that for them, because if they moving into the village, it's not difficult, but they need a 4, 5 or a 6. So it's a 50% chance of doing it. But with only 2 dice, if they both fail, then it fails, and it means that the other unit over there that haven't done anything yet will not get a chance to move. And all I wanted to do was recruit them. So that's their turn over. Right, so what we've got now then is this unit over here. What I'm wanting to do is get these into the village over here. So this is going to involve a few moves. These are open terrain. Unless there's a very specific thing in it, this is just decoration. So if they would move in here, this is an open, but then a village. So it's going to take them at least 3 actions to get there, of which 2 of them are easy. That's the first 2, so we're going to go for those straight away. Once again, we're starting with 6 dice because they're raw. So first move into the open onto the road. They're not moving along the road, they're just moving onto it. Anything that scores above a 3 is a success, so that we go into there. Then we drop a dice off, so they're now on 5. Doing the same again over here. So yes, again 3 again, and they're over and on. Now the Americans can't react to that fire unless they were moving next to them in proximity, basically in the 8 squares around them. So we're now down to 4. Now moving into the village is a little bit difficult. Well, it's a medium action. So this basically needs a what we're looking for here, a 4, 5 or a 6 to complete it and get them into that village. So we've got 4 dice there, and then we're going to see how many peasants are in there. And yes, 4, 4 and a 6. So they've got into the village, and then we just need to see how many peasants are in there, and whether they recruit some or not, I'll decide in a second. Okay, so as you can see, the VC are now in the village over here, so they are going to take out that potential peasant marker, and we're just going to roll 1 dice and see how many peasants potentially are in there. We have 1 peasant in that village, right? Obviously they're not a very happy village who want to give up their peasants. We do still have 3 dice left for the VC to do their action. So that is going to be recruiting, so this is basically needs a 3 up on any of these 3 dice, and that will then remove that peasant anyway. And yeah, we got a 4, 5 and a 2, so yes, they have recruited another VC to add to their forces, but they're still pretty low, so we take that dice off. Now they are down to 2 dice. Do they potentially try to move into the next one over there, next village? if they fail it, as I say, they will. Everybody will only get 1 dice action for the rest of the turn. Nobody else has got any actions, but it also means that they will then get a failure marker, which means that 1 unit will automatically only get 1 dice for next turn. So I'm going to hold it, and they're going to try it next turn. Right, that ends the VC's turn. Okay, the other interesting thing with Peter Pig games is that they have countdown timers as part of their game. So this one works in that you can, if it's on your turn, so it's the VC's turn, they can choose to take off between 1 and 3 points off the countdown timer. It starts at 30, so the VC are wanting to rush the game because the fewer caches that the Americans find, the more points they will get at the end of the game, and also they kind of, you know, they're not a big hitting unit, so the Americans are always going to get more firepower against them, so they don't really want to get into open combat with them, but they also want to try to finish the game as quick as possible. So the VC are going to take 3 off the countdown timer, so we're now on 27. So then we go straight over to the Americans' turn, and let's see what they get up to. Okay, if you recall at the start of the turn, we got our commander is over here, and he is now over 2 squares away from these guys over here, so they are going to be losing dice before they do anything. What I need to do is I need to move him across down to these guys so they can actually meet up and just you know, parlay and get together. He only needs to be within 2 squares of them, but we could probably come through the jungle here or back through here, because remember, we can't have 2 units in the same square at the same time. So I need to get him into the village and then probably through the jungles as well, and then to the paddy field, so at least he is close to those Americans to give them their full dice. So our first one is going to be, well, let's see, I don't know what's easiest. We could move into the village, which would allow us to do a search, but I don't want him to do that. I want him to be moving on, but that is a medium task, so I would prefer him to be doing an easy task immediately, at least, to come over here and then have a couple more difficult ones. Otherwise it's going to be 1 difficult one, then through difficult terrain here. So we're going to go with the easy task first of all. So these guys are starting with 7 dice, and it's a 3 up to get them in there. So yeah, they've got 5, 5, 4, so that's loads. So we go on to there. We then take off 1 of their dice. He is now going to move into the jungle, and this is a medium task, so it's basically a anything 4 up. Oh, I just realised I've got jungle kicking about in jungle there. So he needs a 4 up for this, so there's a good chance he'll do it. Yes, 4, 4, 6, and that's them into there. And I'm going to keep trying to bring him down, so we're taking off another one. As I say, I just really need to get him into range with these chaps over here, so we need to move another one here, and then that will bring them in to range there. And then we've got 5, yeah, 5, 3, a 3 and a 1. So we're moving reasonably rapidly here, and as you can see, I'm removing dice as I go along, and then I'm going to put him into the paddy field, because this is a 4 up as well. I'm just going to get him in the paddy field, and then we're just going to sit there, and that will then allow them some more points. So yeah, so we got 5, 5 and 2 6s and a 1. So that's put him in the paddy field. So he is now within 2 squares of both of these units here. So that then will increase their numbers of their potential action points. All right, so we're going to go over to these guys over here. Now these were the ones I said had already got a better commander anyway, so they actually get an extra couple of dice for their actions this turn, and for the rest of the game as well, until he's gone. So we are going to try to search this village. Now this is a difficult one, but we take off the potential cash because then we've done it, and we roll for this. If we fail this, they immediately stop their turn, and also the other guys will only get 1 action dice this turn. So let's see, they've got 6, 6, 6 and 2 5s there. So yes, they have searched and successfully searched. So now we go over to the cache loop, and we'll set up the camera and show you how that works. Right, so our cache loop works this way, similar to the deviation with the VC when they come on the table. So we've got American here, we want to search for number 1, which is this one here. This is the radio and stuff, so we basically put our figure here to show this is where we're going. Then we roll an opposed dice roll. The VC once again get a +1 on this, and again whoever wins, whoever gets the highest, decides how far or not to move the figure round the cash loop, and then that is taken off, and I'll show you how this works now. Very simple. Right, so the Americans got a 6, VC have got a 3, but that becomes a 4, so the Americans have actually won that cash loop search. So that immediately means that they take the number 1 value item. Now that's great, but it's also a bit of a hindrance, because that will now drop off when they move with that, and they have to move with that, because if they destroy it they lose points. If they move with that, they would reduce their action points, their action dice by 1. So it's good, but it's also a bit of a bind. So we're going to hang on with that, put that on with those guys on the table, but that is a great first search, and that's literally how the cash loop works. Right, so what I've done here is, as you can possibly see, I have not only reduced their number of dice because of their action from the last turn, but also reduced the dice because they are now carrying that cash. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get into this village over here, so they need a 5 or a 6, and then do another search if they can, because this is what the game's about for the Americans. It's about sweeping clear the VC. So we've got 3 6s, so yeah, that's a they needed a 4, 5 or a 6 to do this. So we move into here. One thing I forgot to mention is they also have a K9 unit, which means if they wanted to, they could have had a re-roll on the cash loop search, so that's useful for them as well. So I'm going to put those in there, and we will then again attempt a search here to try to get some more of these caches, because there's still other ones in there that are valuable. So we lose another dice, and we need a 5 or a 6 for this, because it's a difficult one. The VC like to hide their caches, so they've got 2 5s. That's only just. So they actually done it. So we jump back to the cash loop again. I'll take another dice off their total. They are now down to 5. All right, so we're going to try again the cash loop. So this time we want to try to go for this one, which is a high value one. Let's just see. These guys are going to get really bogged down, aren't they, if they're carrying all this stuff? But let's just see. They can destroy caches, but they get fewer points for it. So they've got a 4, and the VC have got a 2, which becomes a 3. So that means that the VC, well, the VC have lost. The US have won again. And as I said, they've got a K9 unit in that particular unit, so they could, if they wanted to, re-roll these dice. They roll them both, re-roll them both. So if it had been reversed, you'd probably want to re-roll it. But they have successfully taken another cache, so that is dropping their command dice down by another 1 as well. So they're currently down to 4 as well as part of the game. Right then, given that these fellas have found 2 caches already, there is also a French plantation over here which potentially has more caches in it. There's only one more high level one to do, high level cache to find. I don't want them to go too far that way, because that way lies VC, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to get to this compound over here. They've only got 4 dice left, so we're just going to try to move them into this jungle clump over here. Moving into the jungle is a medium task, so I need a 4 up for this. So they are double 6, double 1. So they've got in there. Now they're down to 3 dice. Moving again into that paddy field beyond this would be another medium task. So is it worthwhile doing with 3 dice? We're just, as I say, clearing out here, and if I'm clearing out behind us, then potentially, well, you never know, the VC probably might turn up behind them. But right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try one more time. We need a 4, 5 or a 6 on this, and that's going to move them forward. Yes, they've got a 6 there, so I'm going to put them in the paddy field over here, so at least they will stop then, and then I will I could move them into the open. I don't really want to, because I don't want them to be attacked by any VC. So I just move these forward. Oh, and I've forgotten their ammunition. They're humping with them as well. So we're going to stop their turn there. That's them ended. All right, so we're on to these guys over here. Now, these are the bigger unit. but they were originally out of commander distance. He is now into distance with them, so he's within 2 squares of them, so they are back up to their full 7 dice. We're going to try to move into here to try to see if there's any caches in there, so they need a 4 up for this. Yeah, they've got a 4, 4 and a 6, so the first one is generally easy. So we'll just move these guys in, and then they are going to do a search. Now, as I said before, the search automatically removes a cache anyway, a cache marker should I say. So we'll take off one of their dice, and then we get to roll 6 dice, needing 5 or a 6 on this. Have they done it? They've got a 6. Oh, but everything else failed. So yes, they've done it. So then we jump again over onto the cache and see if we can pick up another one. Alright, because the other units had already found the 2 best caches, we're obviously there's only one more, and it's down here. Unfortunately, it's right next to an ambush. So the potential of being ambushed if this goes wrong, but we'll have to have a look and see what happens with that. So we roll once again, as before. The Americans again have got a 6, the VC have got a 2, a 1 becomes a 2, so that means that the Americans don't deviate. They take that cache, so it empties that one out, that goes into there. Also drops off a dice from the Americans themselves as well when they're moving, but yeah, that's good. So they've cleared out all the good caches pretty quickly early on in this game, but they can now still look for the other caches, the low ambush, the low ones, and see if they can destroy those, because they get points for those at the end of the turn if they destroy them. Right, so these guys are once again carrying that cache, so I want to get them into the next one as well to see if they can destroy some of those smaller caches as well. And let's have a look. Yes, they've done it. They needed a 4 up for this to move into the village, so that drops them down again. Now the question is, what do we do here? Simply because the reason I'm asking that, or asking it out loud, is because we are now down to 3 dice, and they need a 5 or a 6 to be able to search. So a 5 or a 6 on 3 dice, there's a potential chance of doing it, but otherwise it will end their turn anyway, and somebody will be failed in the next turn. Let's do it. We need a 5 or a 6. It's their last action, so we're going to take the cache marker off because they can't search again, so they might not even do this, but let's just see. 5 or a 6 on one of these 3 dice. Yes, they've got it, so we're going to jump back to the cache loop again and see if they can get another cache for themselves. Right, okay, so we've got a bit of a choice. We've got some better ones down here, so I think this is probably the safest one because there's very few ambushes around it. So let's just go. They're not so bothered at this point if the VC do actually shift them or not, so we'll just give that a go, roll it up, and the Americans got a 4, the VC have got a 5, becomes a 6. So the VC could either leave them where they are or move them 2 squares either way. 1, 2 will be there, 1, 2 will be there. From a VC point of view, it's very little benefit, so what we might do, well, I don't know, they could, let's clear it out a bit. So the VC are going to shift them to there, so they do find this cache here, so it's a low value one. So what they can do with their final 2 dice is, rather than carry that around, is destroy it. It's an easy task because you just basically set fire to it or whatever. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to do this, so they need a 3 up on either of these dice rather than carry it around, because it's better for them to actually destroy low value ones. And they have done. So they've got a 5 there, so yes, that's been destroyed, so that can go into the Americans' victory pile if there is such a thing. They now are down to 1 action dice. There's not much they can do with that. I could move into the open. I don't want to be in the open because, you know, just don't want to be in the open. So we're going to end the Americans' turn there. They are then, we are doing pretty good here. So it looks like at this point what they might do is they might actually try to finish the game as quick as possible. So I'm going to take off 3 points for them. So I'm going to drop them down from 27 to 24. So they're down there. And that's going to end it, I think. So back to the VC. Okay, so it is now VC turn 2, so they are now able to deploy another one of their support units. So they've put them in here, or at least they're going to try to put them in here, because what happens is we do the deviation roll, and the VC once again they get a +1 on their dice, but the Americans just get their straight roll. So let's see what we've got. The VC have got a 6, +1 is a 7, the Americans have got a 5, so that basically means that the VC have won it, so they don't get shifted. They're not going to get shifted, they're going to go and start off in here. So there are potential peasants in there, so let's get rid of that marker and we'll see how many peasants are actually in that village that they can recruit from. There's 2 next door, remember. There's only 3 in here, but there are 2 next door. So let's see, we've got our peasants there. So these guys are going to be straight onto their first turn, which is 6 dice, 6 action dice, trying to recruit those peasants. So let's see, for the first one then, they have, yes, just passed it. That was cocked, but it was rolling onto a 6, so but they passed it anyway, so they're okay, and they've got 1 peasant at least, well, 1 VC unit to add to their collection. That's them there. And then we reduce that dice obviously down to 2 now. There's only 2 peasants left in there. So let's find a 2 on this dice. There it is. And then they will do their next one, this time obviously with only 5 dice. They're dropping down. Unfortunately, they're not going to be able to move into this. They should have really moved this unit first, but I deployed these first, so them's the breaks. They can't move in while they're there, and once they've stopped doing their actions, they've stopped the turn. So anyway, 4, 5 and a 6 are in there, so yes, that's another peasant off, but also a VC base, so they are now on 4 out of their 6 that they can have. So there's another VC in there. And then we're going to go for another test as well. What we might want to do is maybe get across the road and over onto the other side there. But there's still some potential caches here. Actually 6, yes, they've just done it, but they failed on the other ones. But they've got their last peasant cleared out of there. So they are almost at full strength with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases in there. That's all they're going to do, I think. Well, they've still got 3 action dice left. But there's a potential cache there, so I think they're going to sit there because the Americans are coming and I don't want them to start searching for more caches in this area. Okay, so we got our other VC units who are over here in this village over here. They want to now move into this village, see if there's any peasants in there. This is the 4, 5, 6 test because it is a medium test to do this, so they should do it anyway. They've got 6 dice. And yes, they've got a 5 and a 6 in there, so they passed it. So we're going to go into there and we're going to see how many peasants are in here. So I will then remove the potential peasants. By the way, peasants can get killed if there's firing going on, so the VC are better off sticking around in those villages, simply because it scores badly for the US at the end, however many dead peasants you've got. So let's just see how many peasants we've got in here, alive ones in this case. We have got 2 more in there, so that's not brilliant. So there's the 2 peasants in there. So the VC are probably going to have to, well, I want to recruit them and then carry on moving, I think, towards the plantation over here, or even the other village up in the top there. But let's just see. So recruiting on 3 up. Yeah, they've got 4, 4, 4, 5, a 6 and a 2 in there. So we plonk another base down for these guys. Well, that takes them up to 4 in total. Drops the number of peasants down in there. We take off another dice of their action dice. They're down to 4. They're going to try to recruit that last peasant in there. And that will put them up to 5, almost full strength. So let's see, yes. And so yes, they have got their last peasant base out of there. So we stick that one down there. Right, we are now, I want them to move. I want them to move toward the plantation because that is currently under threat from the Americans. So we're going to drop off another one, another dice. So we're down to 3, but to move into the open is an easy task. So it is actually a 3 up, so that's not hard. So we're in the open there. Then we could potentially try to get into the plantation itself, where there are potentially more peasants. They can only recruit 1 more peasant, and they're down to 2 dice, action dice, and they need a 5 or a 6 to be able to do what they want to do. So I think we're probably going to stop them there. So I'm going to move on to the next unit instead. Okay, that French plantation has become a bit of a focus for the VC now because there are Americans moving in on it. So I want to get these guys, these are foot out strength, so I want to get these moving up towards it. So we're moving into the open. That's an easy, that's only 3 up. Yeah, they've got it double 5s in there, so and a 3 as well. So we're going to move into here. These are no longer recruiting peasants at this point, so just shift these in and take off a dice, and then they are going to, I'm going to actually move them along the road. So this is an easy one as well, so 3 up. So yeah, so they've got that. So I'm going to move into here, and then we're going to go into the paddy fields and then try and get into the place itself. Now, or should they move along here? Let's have a look. That would be easy, that would be difficult, sorry, that would be medium, and that would be medium as well. So we would go, I'm just trying to work it out. So the first move would be down to 4 dice, then the second one will be down to 3 dice, and then the final one will be down to 2 dice. Or we go 1, 2. I think it's easier going the harder way but the shorter route. So we're going to go with this one. So we need a 4, 5 or a 6 to get into the paddy field. Yes, they're in it. So there we go. Put them in here. Then they're down to 3 dice, and finally they're going to try to get into here as well, because if they are in proximity with the Americans they can't actually search anyway, so it's worthwhile getting them into there. So I'm going to try to do that, and that's a 4, 4 and a 1. This is a medium task, acquiring a 4, so that was close. So they are actually in this part of it. So there are potentially peasants in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how many peasants are in. That drops them down to 2 dice. We haven't got line of sight on the Americans because the other side of the village is blocking it. They are down to 2 dice, but let's just see how many peasants are in there anyway. They can't recruit them, but the guys coming up behind can. So they've got 6 peasants in there, as you would expect. Lots of serving staff or whatever. Right, so they're in there. So I'll take that potential peasant marker off there, and they're now down to 2 action dice. So I'm just wondering what to do with those 2 action dice, whether they do anything with them. No, I think they're going to stay where they are, and they're going to end the turn there. And then what I'm going to do for the VC is I'm going to reduce the number of turns down by 3 this time, so they're down to 21 now on the turn clock. What I should have mentioned is the Americans on turn 20, they will get their reinforcements, their extra squad will turn up. Same again, deviation will apply to them. But we've got these guys, I want to get them into the jungles over here, or into the bamboo over here, or at least closer to the units that they're supposed to be commanding. So we're just going to do that. We're moving into the, first of all, into the paddy field, so we need 4s up. So yeah, they're in there for that one. That then also puts them 2 squares away from the unit down at the bottom. So let's see, they're going to go into the bamboo, which actually is a difficult action. So this is a 5 or a 6. So yes, they've got a 6, only one of them, but they've got them into the bamboo. Now I'm going to try again to get them to move them 1 more into the bamboo there next door, because if we do that we could potentially drop some artillery on the VC over here, who actually, no, they're in line of sight. So I'm going to drop artillery on the VC over here. Right, so I'll show you how that works. Okay, so the way this works is we basically mark out where we want our artillery to fall, and it falls in 3 squares. So this is basically where they want it. They're calling it in. It's almost like an airstrike or something, isn't it? They can only fire 1 artillery round per turn when they're fighting against a VC. The Americans, the VC don't get any artillery, obviously. And it is also a difficult roll, so they need a 5 or a 6. We've got 5 dice, so there's a good chance we'll get it. Let's see then. So we got, whew, I say good chance. There you go. We've all of them failed apart from 1, 6. So that reduces his dice down to 4 anyway. So I'm just going to put that to one side. Right. So artillery has been called in. So we lay it out where it is. Now, unfortunately, it might hit some peasants down here. But what I'm trying to minimise peasant casualties by laying it this way, meaning that it's going to land hopefully on this VC unit over here instead, as much as anything else. Peasant casualties will count towards loss of points for the US at the end of the game. That said, we now have to roll to see if it deviates, and the VC roll this because they're the target. So we just quickly roll a d6, and that tells us if it actually deviates. It's a 3. A 3, 4, 5 or a 6 equals no deviation, so it lands on target. Otherwise it may swivel around one end, or it may swivel around the centre, depending on if you roll a 1 or a 2. So it has actually hit. So what we have to do now is we have to roll for each of the bases, including the peasants, in there, and these are hit on a 3 up. So it's quite devastating when it does hit, but they do get a save roll. So I'm going to start with the basic infantry. So they're hitting on 3s up first of all. So 2 of those have been hit, and they are now saving on a 4 up, 4, 5 or a 6. So let's see, so that is a 5, 1 is saved, a 3, 1 isn't saved, so that is a kill for the VC. So we put a VC casualty in there straight away. Now the VC can disappear off the table and get rid of casualties. These will count towards morale if they are in proximity to the enemy. So that was a normal unit. Now we've got to see if the commander is hit. Same again, 3 up. Yes, he is hit. He is saving on a 3, 4, 5 or a 6 because he's the commander. Yes, he's saved, so he's okay. And then we've got to see if the peasants are also hit, and they're hit again on a 3, 4, 5 or a 6. So let's just see. Yes, they are hit. They are saving on a 4, 5 or a 6. No, the US have killed the peasants in there, so that is going to be 1 peasant target, 1 peasant off their list. So they're gone, and I'm going to take that off because the potential peasants that were in there are no longer in there anyway. So we have 1 dead peasant in there. Actually no, there are still peasants in there, so they may get killed by gunfire or other things later on. So this is what happens in war, I'm afraid. Also, it also means as well that the units that are in there are hammered because of them being hit by artillery, and they are also what is called down. Basically, it means they increase their cover, but it also costs them an action to get back up again. So they're hammered and down. So their morale is quite low at the moment. They've got a casualty in there. They are hammered, and they're also under strike. So if I can get some US up to them, to force morale on them, they may disappear off at some point in the future, or they might just disappear off themselves anyway. Okay, they've got 4 dice left. I'm just going to try to get them to move into that other bamboo there. This is a 5 or a 6 roll, so let's just see if they do it. 6, yes, they've done it, and I'm just going to stop them there. They are no longer not doing anything else, so we're going to go on to the next US unit. So we've got the other American units are over here in this village. I want to get them across to at least next to these VC, probably do some shooting at them as well if they can. So we're going to try to move through the jungles into here. So we're going to go with the first one. This is a medium task, so it's a 4 up. So let's just see. Yes, they've done it on the first one. I know where they're going to go, so I'm not going to move everything. They were 1 action dice down as well because of their carrying a cache. So that's why they only rolled 6 there. And then I'm going to try to move them into here as well. So same again, 4, 5 and 6. So yes, we've got a 4, 5 there. So they are now in this spot here, and we are now down to 4 dice. So I think what we might do is do some shooting at those VC in the village. As the US have moved into this jungle area here, they are firing at them. They need 6s to hit though, and they fire with 1 dice per base. So they're just basically hitting on 6s here, nothing, so that has no effect. Meanwhile, the US now are going to try to see if they can actually fire. They need a 4, 5 or a 6 for this, and they can do this a maximum of twice in a turn. So this is the first time they're doing it. Yes, they've got a 5 and a 6, so we're going to take that dice off while I remember. So they can fire, and they are now firing at the VC in cover, who are also down. Because they're down, that's all the VC can do. They can disappear, or they can fire, pretty much, and that's it. So what we do is we count up the foot bases, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the big US one, so we've got 6 in there in total, and that's up to a maximum of 6 dice, so we've got that. We don't get any pluses or minuses for being raw or veteran. You will always get a minimum of 1d6 dice, and then we roll d6. Basically any 6s are hits, however 5 6s are hits. If there's any double 1s, it's a dead peasant. So basically we roll to see if we hit. 5s and 6s are hits, any double 1s are dead peasants. So let's see what we got in here. We have 1 hit and only 1 1. So there is 1 hit on the thing, but then we have a basic save for the VC, just one of the bases. They are in cover, so it's +1. They are down, however it is also short range, so it's a +1 for them. It's on a 4, 5 or a 6, so it is a 3, 4, 5 or 6, and they're saved. 6, yes, they're saved. They've already fired, so they can't do any return shooting on that. Now the US have once again, they've still got 3 dice left for their actions, so let's keep pumping fire into those VC, I think. So this will be again another 4, 5 or a 6, and then they get a chance to do some firing. Yes, they do it again. So once again they're down, so I'm just going to put 2 dice there just to remind me that the US have only got 2 left. They are starting with their 6 dice, hitting on 5s and 6s, double 1s being peasant kills as well. So there is a double 1 in there, and I can only see 1 6. So yeah, so that's a dead peasant in there as well. Another dead peasant. This is why the VC should be hanging around in the villages, because you get dead peasants in villages from US fire and it looks bad in Stars and Stripes. So they're saving on a 4 up, in cover and down, so that's a +2, becomes a 2 up. However, they are close range, so that becomes a 3 up. And it's a 3, so yes, absolutely ineffective firing from the US, apart from against those poor peasants. So as the other US units only had 2 dice left, I'm going to leave it at that. So these guys here, I want to get them up into the face of the VC over here and start doing some damage on them. More peasants' death as well. Right, they are, so basically I'm just going to count it down. These guys have got 7 for their action dice. These are the ones that have got the better leader as well, so they don't need to be close to their platoon commander. But they are carrying 2 caches, which they don't want to destroy, so that drops them immediately down to 5 on their action dice. So what we probably try to do is to come into the open here, because that's an easy task, and then move potentially into here, into the village itself. So for the first action we need a 4 up. Yes, we just got it, because they've got a 5 there and a load of 2s, so that does move them into the open in here. And then obviously we take another dice off, so they're down to 4 now. I don't know whether they're going to get a chance to fire or not, taking all their cash and everything with them, so we're going to take off another dice. They're down to 4, so they are then going to roll and move into there. They need a 4 up for this because it's a village. Yes, they've got in, so they are now down to 3 dice. What they could do then is potentially fire at the VC who are in there. They're not going to do any searching at this point, but I'm just going to bring them in and let's see if we can shoot at the VC and hopefully not hit any peasants, he says with trepidation. Right, so that's them in there. So they are down to 2 dice, and they're going to need a 4 up on either of these to be able to fire. So let's just try it. They are the last unit that is moving, so we'll see. 6 and a 2, yes, they can fire, so that's good. So they now have, we then go on to the firing. Hang on, the VC are going to fire at them first of all before they come in, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases in there which will be firing on 6s, so this is just them moving in. So these are hitting on 6s, and there is 1 hit on the US. They are in cover, so they're saving on a 3 up. Let's just see, it's just going to be on one of the bases. It is a 5, no effect. And then, so that's the VC return fire. So now we can now go on to the US fire. So I'm just going to put that dice there to remind me they've got 1 dice left of action. They're starting with 5 dice, hitting on 5s and 6s. So that's it. So this is a simple roll, 5s and 6s to hit. And any double 1s in there? No, and there are no hits either. They have got one more action dice left. So, do we risk it? 4, 5 or a 6? Yeah, go on. It's 50-50 chance. Right, so let's see. It's a 4, yes, so they can fire again, and they're going to as well at the VC in there. 5s and 6s, there's no double 1s. There are 2 hits though in there. The VC will take those on 2 of their units. They're in cover, but they are at close range, so they're saving on a 4, 5 or a 6. So 1 is killed, 1 isn't, so that is 1 VC unit off and a casualty in there as well. So yeah, a wee bit of work there. Now this was the second shooting, so the VC can actually return fire here. So I'm going to allow them to, so they've got 1, 2, they're down to 5 dice, but they're only hitting on 6s, because he's returned shooting. That's 1 hit. The US will take that 1 hit on one of their bases. They are in cover, so 5 or a 6 is a save is 3, 4, 5 or a 6. So let's see. No, they have taken a hit, and a US casualty goes in there. Now they can only get rid of those by casivacing, so they're probably going to have to do that with their platoon commander at some point in the next turn or so. But that will end the US turn. They are only going to drop their total. No, they're going to drop it quickly because they've still got a lot of caches potentially. So I'm going to drop it from 21 down to 17. It means that they can then bring on their reserves in their next turn. Sorry, down to 18. Okay, so we've ended the US turn there, so I'm going to have to go now onto the VC turn, and because they've got enemy in proximity, i.e. these guys over here, and there's also another unit as well over on the other side of the table, which I'll do in a second, we do morale for them. So what we do is, you only do morale when the enemy are in proximity. So first of all, we have a look at it. The VC are raw, so they automatically get 1 dice. They have a casualty in there, so that is a 2nd dice, and an enemy unit is also in proximity, so another dice. Now we roll these. 4, 5, 6 are fails, which always really kind of throws me, but it takes off a dice of their action dice for every fail that they get. So let's just see, and they've failed 2 of them, so they were starting with 6 dice, so they immediately go down to 4 dice because they only have things. So I'm just going to mark that there just to remind me later on, and then we'll move on to the next one and do theirs, and this is probably going to be a bit worse because they also are hammered as well, which I'll show you how that works. So we've got these guys here. Now they are, once again, they're raw, so they start with 1 dice. They have 1 casualty in there as well, and they also have a unit which is in proximity. The Americans are next to them, so they get another dice as well, so it's 3. Now we roll those dice, same again, 4, 5, 6 as the fails. So yes, they've lost 3 of their action dice, so that actually takes them to 3 dice. Now unfortunately for them, they are also hammered, so that takes off another 2 of their action dice, dropping them down to 1. So they've only got 1 action dice. They are also down as well, which they actually need to carry on by basically rolling the uses of one of their actions to carry on. So they're probably going to stay down and just shoot their way out of it. But let's move on to another VC unit, but he's not down, or he's not cowering in the mud at the moment. Okay, so what the VC have done, they're going to bring on a fresh unit. It's their next unit as well, so these are going to appear on this table edge, so behind the Americans, and they are, well, they're going to be, first of all, they're going to be subject to a deviation roll, so we'll just check, see if they turn up there. They wanted to get them into one of these villages. Right, so they've actually scored a 1, the American, so that makes it 2, the Americans have scored a 5, which means that the Americans can move them 3 squares somewhere. So let's see, 1, 2, 3 would be not particularly good, 1, 2, 3 is the best one, so I'm going to move them over here, and I'll show you where they are in a second. So unfortunately for those VC, they've ended up over here, right on the very edge of the table, right in the square. They want to get through the jungle and try to get into this village here, so we're going to try to do that. 4 up first of all, and they've got, yes, they've got 4 5s in there, so we're going to move them into this square here. They will then attempt to do the same again, moving into the village on a 4-up. Yes, they've done it this time as well. So we now have some potential peasants in there. Let me just take a dice off while I remember, and then they've got 4 left. So they can do a bit of recruitment. Let's see how many peasants there are in there. There is 1. So they can do 1 recruitment, and of course they will do. So this is their 4 dice, so they need 3 up for this. Let's see, yes, they passed it. Take off another dice while I remember again, and we add on a unit for them. So there's another unit for those guys, and that takes off that peasant one. Now they could move into the next square, and I'm going to, because they need to quickly get some units together at this point. So we're going to move into the next square. 6, yes, they've done it, only just though, but they haven't done it. And then there's potential peasants in there, so I'll take that one off, and we'll see how many. They are down to 2 dice now. But let's see how many peasants. Potentially there is another 1 in there. This is not going well for them, is it? But they've got 2 dice left. They need a 3, 4, 5, 6 to recruit them, so they're going to try to drag those out. And yes, they've just done it with a 4, so that's gone. That token has gone, and they do get another unit in there with them. So they are down to 1 dice. I'm not going to do anything else with them, because anything else is pretty tricky to do, even shooting, so I'm just going to leave it for now. Okay, so we've got this other VC unit. I want them to be moving into this village over here to pick up, they need at least 1 more peasant to join them, to bring them up to strength, and then they can start attacking the US at the plantation. So we're going to do this first of all. These are operating on their full dice, so yeah, they've made it. They're into there, so we'll just put them in there. The first action, we'll take the token off, so I know that they've checked for peasants. Stick them in there, and then we'll see how many peasants are actually in there. Just take off these dice as well, just so while I remember. So let's see, for the peasants is, there are 4 peasants in there. Remember, as they lose them in their units, they can always come back and pick these guys up if they want to. So they're going to pick up at least 1 peasant to drop it down to 3. So let's have a look. Yes, they've managed to do that. So they are now at full strength, and there's still 3 peasants in there. And they are then going to move through the jungle to try to get on top of the Americans here and swarm them if they can, so get them out of the plantation and do some damage. Right, so they have moved, because they've got a 5 there, so I'm going to put them in this one here. Now they have actually moved next to the US, so they are able to fire at them because they're in proximity. So they're going to fire across at them. Oh, sorry, that's peasants. So they're going to fire across. The Americans are going to fire across. The VC have now only got 3 dice left. So the Americans are only firing with 1 dice per base, and they have 4 bases, hitting on 6s. They've hit with 1. The VC are saving on a 4-up, but they are in cover, so they're saving on a 3-up. They're going to take it on one of their infantry bases, so no hits on them at all. So they now have 3 dice left. So they're going to try to fire at the US with their full strength. Let's see, they have passed it, yes, they've got 4, 5 and a 3 there as well, just in case. Right, so they have fired, or they will fire. Because they're raw, they're only rolling, they've got 6 bases, but they're only rolling 4 dice, and they have hits on 5s and 6s, so that is 2 hits on the Americans. They will take those 2 hits on just their normal infantry. So this one here, they're saving on a 3-up because they're in cover. Let's see, yes, they've saved, and they'll take a hit on just one of the other ones. Same again, 3-up, and they've saved. Yes, they've saved both of those. The Americans have already fired, so they can't do any return fire, I don't think, really there. That drops the VC down to 2 dice. So let's see. No, I think the Americans can fire back. They can fire at any time you are being fired at. So they are going to fire back, but they're only hitting on 6s. So, but they have hit 1, and they're saving on a 3-up. No, so that's a VC casualty over there. So we'll take one of those guys off and replace him with a casualty. Yeah, I think anytime anybody moves, or you can just keep firing at them, or they fire at you. So anyway, the VC are down to 2 action dice over there. It's 4, 5, 6 for them to fire again. It would be their second and final firing. So I'm going to do it. So yes, they've done it. They've got a 5 and a 1. That takes them down to 1 action dice. So I'm not going to do anything else with them. But they are now firing with only 5 dice into there, hitting on 5s and 6s. Sorry, no, it's 3 dice because they're raw. That's a 4, 1 and a 1. That is a miss, and yet again the Americans will get to fire back. It's American firepower, democracy through firepower. That's 2 hits, 2 6s there for them. So 2 hits on just 2 of the normal bases, saving on 3s up. 3 and a 5, yes, that's a save for the VC there. Alright, so that was the Americans. Well, that was the VC finished up there. So we've got the other VC unit here. These have got 4 on their units there. Now, they could potentially raise, I'm just going to turn that off, they could potentially raise a peasant because they're down 1. Yes, we're going to, because there are 6 peasants in there. I'm going to drag one out and see if we can. So 6, yes we have. So they will get another peasant base in there. I'll just stick those in there now. They've still got a casualty in there with them, but they do have another base now. So now they're back to 6, and they are down to 3 activation dice, which they are going to use to fire at the... Just wondering whether it's better to actually assault them, you know. Do we fire or do we assault? There's a dead American in there, but there's also a chance of... let's fire. 4, 5 or 6. Yes, that's 2 chances of firing, and they are firing with 4 dice, hitting on 5s and 6s, and that is just 1 hit on the Americans, who are saving on a 3 up. No, the Americans take another hit, so it's worthwhile them firing, wasn't it? So there's another American casualty in there. The Americans will fire back. They're going to be firing back with their... Oh, let me see. They've got now 3 dice in there because they've only got 3 bases to fire with. They're going to be returning fire on 6s. That's a hit though. So let's see. 3, 4, 5, 6 saves them. Yes, they are saved. So they've currently got 2 dice left for the VC in there. The question is then, is it time to assault the Americans? I think it is. Let's go for an assault. An assault is a difficult action, so they need a 5 or a 6 on either of these dice. So let's just go for it, because they might wipe out the Americans at this point if they do. So I'm going to try. 5, yes, and a 2. So yes, they can go in for the assault. So let's work out our assaulting. Okay, so assaulting is quite easy. We count up how many bases are in the assault. So 6 for the VC and 3 for the Americans. You then take 2 off for the VC being raw, so that drops them down to 4. You then get 2 dice for each one. As the VC are assaulting from 1 square away, so it's a close assault basically. So they get an extra dice for that, so that takes them up to 9, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 dice in total. So let's put these to one side for 1 second. Meanwhile, the Americans, they are not being assaulted from the open, so they would have got 1 for that, but they get 2 for each of their bases. So they get these, but they also get a re-roll because they're white star. So we roll these first of all, and we get these roll, and any 6s are kills. So let's see. They do get a re-roll, so they could stick with this or re-roll it. There's only 1 kill in there. There's potential for getting more, so I'm going to go for another re-roll on that, just in case. Let's see. Not a single one. Should have stuck with it. But then, so yeah, no kills on a VC. However, the VC now roll their dice. They don't get a re-roll, so all this counts. So now we've actually killed 2 Americans in there. So that takes out them and them, which also then means that there are a couple more US casualties in there. God, so they're getting hammered, absolutely hammered. So the assaulters can't do anything else, but the Americans are going to fall back, which means they will take even more hits from those VC. They will take 1d6 per base, -2 for being raw, so only 4 bases at least for the US, not great, but any 6s are also kills. So this could actually, yes, wipes them out. So that has wiped out the US. The K9 is an asset, so that comes off with them. So they've actually lost an entire section there. They've also lost the caches as well. I will take these casualties off because we don't need those anymore. So the 2 caches are still sitting in there, which is not very good for the Americans. They were their best ones and they've lost them now. So for the VC, the last actions they can do is these guys here. They are down. It would take them an action to get up, so they're just going to fire at the Americans as they are. So they are just firing with 2 dice, hitting on 5s and 6s at these Americans. And yes, they've hit 1. They're in cover, so they're saving on a 3-up. No, they have taken another hit. Wow, the Americans are taking some heavy casualties here. So that's an American in there. And then the Americans do get to fire back. And they're firing back with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units there. So these are hitting on 6s. And that is 3 hits on those VC. What's happened to them? They are down, they're in cover, so that's a save on a 2-up for these guys, so it's only 1s. 1 has been killed though, so that's another VC casualty there. This is getting pretty grim. This is rough, this. Right, so that ends the VC turn. They can't do anything else, so what they're going to do is they're going to drop the turn by another 3, takes them down to 15 now. So 5 potential turns left in this game. Okay, so the Americans are going to attempt to bring on their next unit on over here. So we have to do a deviation roll for this. So let's see. So again, the VC get a +1 on the red dice. They've got a 2 against the Americans 2. That turns into a 3, which means that the VC can shift them, and they're going to, of course, they're going to shift them over here into the jungle instead of in that paddy field, which is not what they wanted because they were trying to head towards that cache and to grab them back again if they could. Okay, so now they are far away from their platoon commander, so they're only on 5 dice, but they're going to try to move through and to get to this cache. So the first one is going to be moving into this jungle here. 6 and 6 and a 5. So yes, they've done it, and then they're going to try to move into the open. So I'm just going to move one base at the moment, just because I know where they're going to go. This is a 4-up for them to do this. Sorry, it's a 3-up because it's an easy one, so they're in there, yes. Now they're down to 3. We're kind of running along really to try to pick up what we had left, and yes, they've done it again, and now they're down to 2, but they need a 5 or a 6 to get into the building. This is what it counts. 2 and a 1. They have failed. So basically that means they end their turn there. It also means everybody else on the table who is American now only has 1 action dice for the rest of this turn, and we also put the failed marker on a unit. The VC get to choose this, and it basically means they only get 1 action dice at the start of next turn, so they are going to put it onto the unit that did just fail. So that was a bit of a mistake on the US part, but they're going to try to fire. So the platoon commander, he only gets 1 action dice. Yes, they are able to fire. They're rolling with 2 dice though at the VC over here. 5s and 6s are hits. No, but they both missed. VC can't fire back because they're not in proximity, but they can then now try to activate these guys and see if they do something. 2, no, so they can't do anything either, so that does end the US turn. Right, again, the US are desperate to get this game over, so we're going to drop it down by 15 to 3, so at least so there's only 12 more command points, so there's 12 more timer left at this point. Just quickly need to say here that I did actually forget to do morale for these guys. I should have done it at the start of the turn, but because they ended up only having 1 dice anyway of action, it doesn't matter because you always get a minimum of 1, so even if they'd lost all their morale, so I'm just going to ignore it for now. Don't write in the comments. Okay, right, back to the VC though. So we're going to have to try to see what happens with these guys with their morale. So they're starting with a 1 because they're raw. They are in proximity to 1 enemy unit, so that's 2 dice. They've also got 2 casualties as well in there, so that's 4 now, and they are Yeah, that's it. So we're starting with this. This 4's up, removed from their are failures, and they are removed from their action dice. So they've got 2 off their action dice. Their action dice started out at 6 anyway, so we take 2 off for the morale failures. Oh, sorry, wrong colour. Giving them American dice, there you go. So they're staying down, but what I'm going to do is they're going to disappear. It's VC, they can literally come off the table and then they come back on another place. They take the casualties with them. Once they've disappeared, they forget about the casualties. So I think I'm going to do that with them. And it is an easy action. So 3 ups, yes, they just got it. They got 1, 3. So these guys are disappearing off the table. Let's take that off, and it means that their casualties also go with them. Now they can come back on in a future VC turn, but that's all they're doing for now. Okay, so this VC unit over here, we are going to do something with these. So they are starting with 6 action dice. I'm going to try to move them into here first of all, and possibly assault those Americans as well, but let's have a look. We got, yes, they've managed to move, so they got 5s, so they're in there. That means the Americans do get to shoot at them, but it also means that they have now captured those caches as well, which means that they are now reducing their number of their action dice. So just move these fellas in here. So they now have the caches with them, so the Americans are going to have to try to capture them off them, and there's 2 of them, so I'm going to take those off. So that means that they now have 4 action dice left. I'll just put, they'll take their casualty with them as well, and I'll just put the action dice close to them so I know. The Americans, meanwhile, are going to fire with 5 shots, hitting on 6s because they just moved into proximity. No, they've missed with all of those. So VC, now I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to assault again because it worked so well last time. Let's do it. We're rolling these 4 dice. It's a 5 or a 6 though to do it, because assaulting is quite hard. So let's see. Yes, 2 6s there, so they are now going to pile into here. I'll just shift these up a little bit more so it looks like they're actually attacking here. Let's see if this goes as well as it did last time. We do have another VC bunch coming up with them close by as well. So let's just count up what we've got for both of these. I think I did the VC but dirty last time. I didn't actually add in a short assault for per base. I didn't read that, unfortunately, but I have done it this time. So there's a good chance the Americans are standing. They could potentially retreat, but they're not going to. So the Americans have got, they get 2 per base, and they've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 dice because they've got 5 bases. The VC have got basically 4 bases because you've got raw, they've got 6, but you take 2 off, so that's 8 dice for them immediately. Plus they then get 1 dice per base for attacking from a close range, so that's 14 dice against the Americans, 10 I think. So the Americans do get a reroll, so we're looking for 6s. And we've got 1 6 out of all of those. I think it's worth chancing it for that reroll because the VC will probably do a lot more damage than that. So just see if they can at least get 2 kills. And no, they don't. They get 1 kill on the VC, but the VC, it's their turn. They don't get a reroll on this. So let's just see how many they get for this 1 single roll. And we have just 1 kill on the Americans, so it's 1 for 1, and basically that means that the target wins, but we do get a kill on each of these. So I'll take off a base and a base with more casualties in there as well. These guys have just turned up, they're new in country, unfortunately for them. Okay, so the target won, which means that the target rolls for pursuit. They get to roll 4 dice because they've got 4 bases left, and any 6s on those are also kills on the VC as well. So this is what we're looking for here. That was cocked, so I'm going to roll it again. It's a 5. That just knocked over onto a 6 from a 3, I think. So that's it. So the assaulter falls back to the square they assaulted from, and they may not use any further action dice this turn, and the target is now down. So the Yanks are down and failed as well, unfortunately for them. Okay, so we've still got another VC unit over here, in the jungle. What they're going to try to do is move through the jungle, come to here, and then attack the Americans again. So let's try that. So first one is a 4-up. So yes, they've done it. So we're in there. Then they're moving into paddy fields. This time they now have 5 dice. So same again. 4s. I'm just moving them there because of where they are. 5, 6, 4. Yes, they are here. So I'm just going to put these guys in here. Now they can either shoot or assault. Meanwhile, the Americans are going to get to shoot at them anyway. And I think they're going to try to assault, because why not? Because the Americans are in a pretty bad state over there. So they're down to 4 dice anyway. But the Americans will fire at them with 4 bases, hitting on 6s. Let's see, no hits. So they've got 4 dice. They can either shoot at the Americans and take some return fire, or assault them. And I'm going to assault them, because why not? I'll try to anyway. Need a 5 or a 6 on any dice. 6, yes, they've done it. So they're attacking as well into those poor beleaguered Americans at this point. Right, so let's work out our points. Okay, slightly different this time, because the VC are attacking from paddy fields. They're not counted as cover, so they're difficult to move through, but they are not cover. So the Americans are getting a bonus of 1 dice per base in the defense here. So they've actually ended up with 4, 8, 12 dice in total against a VC attack of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So ever so slightly outnumbered VC there. Let's just see what the outcome of this is. Right, so once again the US get to re-roll their dice if they want. Let's just see, we've got 1, 2 kills. Are they going to do better than that? Yeah, let's re-roll them. Let's go for it. Unless they ended with about 3 or 4 kills, I probably wouldn't have re-rolled. So let's just see. And this time, no, they've only killed 1 this time round. 1 is 1. It's better than none. Okay. So we then check the VC, and again, these don't get to re-roll these. You never know if it's worth re-rolling or not. I think when you've only got a low number like that, you may as well. But let's see. VC have killed not a single one. So another VC casualty. It means then that the VC are subject to pursuit, which also means they stay where they are. So the attack was a failure. They can't do anything else for the rest of the turn anyway. And they also take some hits from the US, who have got 4 shooting, and they're hitting on 6s. 1 other casualty as part of it. So that actually was a bit of a disaster for those VC. Okay, so the VC are once again going to bring on their last unit. There's a couple of potential peasants over there, and they need to build them up. Their forces are starting to thin out a little bit now, and there's not that many peasants left on the table. So we see for the deviation dice, if they get moved, they've got a 3, becomes a 4. The Americans have rolled a 5, so the Americans get to move them 1. So the Americans are going to move them further away from the village down to here. But then the VC begin their turn with 6 action dice, which they will move into this paddy field on a 4-up. So yes, they're in. They will then try to move into the other paddy field on a 4-up. Yes, they've done it. And then finally they're going to try to move, well, not finally, but they're going to move into that village. Yes, they've done it there. So how many peasants have we got in the village? They've got 3 action dice. Let's just remember that. And peasants in there, 1 peasant. So they're going to try to recruit that 1 measly peasant, and they need a 3-up for this to happen. Yes, they've done it, so they've at least got themselves an extra base in there. So we stick them down with them. Now they're down to 2 dice, so I'm going to try to move them again in over here. And a 4 and a 2, they have just done it, because they needed a 4. They're down to 1 action dice now, so we'll see how many peasants are in this particular village. So if it's more than 1, It's 2. So close. So we'll stick that 2 down there just to show, and then they've got 1 action dice left, which they will try to recruit one of those peasants with. No, they've failed. So that is a failure. So the Americans get to decide where the failure goes on the unit, and I'm going to put it on the ones that have currently got the caches in their hands. Right, because of that failure, the VC are down to 1 dice for the rest of their units, and this guy's here. There's nobody to recruit in there. I don't want to move them because if they move, they've got no other actions. So I don't want to move them closer to the Americans that are in the jungle. I don't want to move them into the open. I don't want to move them further into the village. So I'm just going to leave them. End of the VC turn there. They are taking 3 off the counter down to 9 now. So there is only a maximum of, well, a minimum of 3 turns left of this game. But I think it is certainly drawing to a conclusion pretty quickly. Alright, so it's over to the US, and the first thing we're doing is we've got morale for these guys. They have failed anyway, so actually, to be honest, I don't need to roll a dice for them, because the morale dice only take off action dice. They are the one that's failed previously, so they only have 1 action dice anyway. So all they're going to do is actually they're just going to fire. I'm going to take the failed one off. They are down as well, and they are firing with 4 dice at the VC over there. So we've got to see if they actually are able to do it. 4, 5 or 6. No, they failed it. So that has basically put the banjacks on everybody else as well. So it means that they've only got 1 action dice each for the rest of their platoon. Ouch, that's not good, is it? The US are pretty banjacks, so all they're going to do is try to get their platoon commander to fire at the VC that are in this village down here. So we need a 4, 5 or a 6, and it's a 1. No, they've failed as well. And the last unit is not going to do anything, so we're just going to reduce the time because they can't do anything really. They are down and they are out. Okay, the VC have got a couple of morale tests that I'm going to do. So the first one's over here. They currently have, they're already raw. They have 3 casualties with them. They also have 1 enemy in proximity, so that's 5 dice. 4, 5, 6s takes off from their potential command. So they failed 2 of them. So they were starting with 6. So they're now down to 4 on their command dice. So let me just make a note of that. So I remember, and I want to do the morale for these ones over here as well, but they are already failed, so they're actually just on 1 dice anyway. And what they're going to do is they are going to actually disappear off the table, taking their casualties with them and those caches. So let's see, 4, they've done it. So these guys are disappearing off with their casualties. So they go. And they take away those caches from the US, which is not good for them, is it? So we take that off, take them off, and we remove their casualties, and they can then come back onto the table in a future turn should they wish. Meanwhile, the other ones over here, we'll go back to these. These have got 4 action dice, so they are so badly hammered as well. They are also going to try and disappear off. So I'm just going to try and take them off. Yeah, 3's up, they've done it. So the VC are disappearing into the jungle, as you would expect. It's not great because there's not a huge amount of peasants left on the table for them to come back and recruit from, but at least they are no longer being damaged by the Americans. But also, speaking of recruitment, these guys over here, these are going to start and try to get these peasants recruited. I didn't take that marker off, so I'll just get rid of that. So they're starting with their 6 dice. There's 2 potential peasants in there, so let's see if they get them. Yes, they needed a 3 up, so there's a, and then there's 1 more in there, so I'm going to try to recruit that as well. So that takes 5 dice, again 3's up. Yes, they've done that as well, so we'll take that off and add on a peasant base there for them. So that's them there. Now they are down to 4 actions, 4 action dice should I say. So we are going to, I think, try to move through the village and maybe try to assault those Americans again, or at least shoot them if nothing else. It's going to be easier to go through, to go through the jungle. Let's do it. So first one is a 4, 5 or 6, so yes, going to get them to there. And now they're down to 3. They could go through the paddy field, or they could just stay where they are. Now let's go into the open. So that gives, yes, they've done it, and now they're down to 2 dice, and an assault is a 5 or a 6. So let me just move all these guys up ready. I'm going to try to really clear out these Americans if they can, get them out of Vietnam. But the Americans do actually get to fire at them with 4 dice. So they're going to shoot at them, hitting on 6s, and they've hit with 2. They're saving on 4s up, and that is a kill on those VC there. So they take a casualty for that. But they were down to 2 dice now. So we're going to have to see if their 2 dice will help them. They are going to, yeah, is it worthwhile trying to do an attack? Because there's probably a lot of them in there. No, I'm going to try and shoot. So I need a 4 up. Yes, they've done it. So they've only got 2 dice for the shooting. 5s and 6s. No. The Americans get to shoot back. And no, they've missed. They've got 1 action dice left, and I'm going to use it to try to shoot again. And yes, they can this time, so it's only 2 dice. And they've hit with 1, and the Americans are saving on a 4 up. No, a 3 up, because they're down, but still caused a casualty on them. That's a 2. This is pretty much the lost platoon at this point, isn't it? And that's it. That's that VC's turnover. There's 1 more VC unit to go, I think. Alright, so the VC are going to try to bring on one of their units that disappeared. That's these ones over here. So we're going to roll, see where they end up. The deviation. They've won by 4-1, so they're not going to move. They're going to go straight into there, and they're going to try to recruit the 2 peasants that are available in that village. So they need a 3 up. So yes, they've recruited 1, and I'm just going to do the second one as well as part of this. And yes, so they recruited both of those, so that's put their strength up by 2, so they are almost at full strength. And then with their next action, they're going to try to move into this village and then probably take some shots at the Americans as well there. So let's see. Yes, they've done it. They moved into the village. They will now take some fire from the Americans, but they will then do something themselves. They've got 3 action dice left after this. So there we go. So just put those 3 dice there so I remember. The Americans, meanwhile, they are firing with 5 dice at those VC as they come in on 6s, and they've hit with 2. They're saving on 4s, but they come with 3s because they are in cover, and both of those have saved. So they've got 3 action dice left. They're not going to attack, they're not going to assault, they're just going to fire at the Americans on a 4 up. Yes, they've managed to do it. So we add up the bases. They've got 5 bases minus 2 because they're raw, and hitting on 5s and 6s. Nope, no hits. The Americans, unfortunately for them, do get to return fire, and they're hitting on 6s. 1 hit. So they are saving on a 3 up. No, so that's another kill for the Americans in there for those VC. And there were no double 1s there. No, there was 3 1s, so that's another dead peasant in there as well. Bloody hell, Americans. Improve your aim. What are you doing? So there's another dead peasant in there. We're going to have to count those up at the end of the game for the points. So we've got 1 VC unit left over here, and I'm going to try to get them to move to attack the platoon commander. Let's just go for it. So first move is 4-4. Yes, they've done it. They're just moving into the open on the road there. So we'll just get them onto here. It's only a small unit, but they are then going to move in front of the platoon commander, which will mean that he gets to fire at them. Yes, they've done it. They needed a 3 up for this, so nice and simple. They're down to 4 dice now, so put that to one side. The platoon commander shoots with 2 dice, hitting on 6s. No. The VC are going to try to assault the platoon commander. So let's see if he does. Yes, they got a 5, and they needed a 5 or a 6, so they've done it. So they are still now on 3 dice. So I'm just going to put that there to remind me. So they will assault into that attack, into that position there. So it's not huge numbers, but the VC have got 8 and the US have got 6. So the VC, we're looking for at least 1 kill for the US, otherwise they're going to re-roll. That's 2 kills. That's way above the odds, so we're going to hang on to that. I'm not going to re-roll that. Meanwhile, the VC killing on 6s. They have killed 1. So 1 base there, 2 of their bases there. That means that the VC get pushed back. So that's, well, they don't come out of their, it ends their turn anyway, so I can take those dice off. So they've taken 2 kills there from the assault, and it means basically they then get some pursuit attacks, 1 dice per base that survive of the Americans. So 6 is another kill. No. So useless, absolutely useless. Well done, fellas. But then the VC are going to reduce the timer down to 3, which means the Americans will probably end this game in the next turn. Let's just see what they do with what little they've got left. Okay, so the Americans over here in their turn, they have got a morale test, so we're going to test for that. 4, 5 or 6 first of all. That they failed both of them, so that reduces their morale down to 5, well, their command dice down to 5. So I'll do the morale test for the other units earlier, further on, but they're already failed anyway, so they're already on 1. So let's just try with these. They are going to try to fire at the VC in front of them. Their first one, yes, they've managed to do it. Just. They're firing with 5d6 and hitting on 5s and 6s, so that's 1 hit. They're saving on a 3-up. They've saved it. They get to return fire. There's no double. There is a double 1, so another dead peasant from the Americans. Oh God, more dead peasants than you can count at this point. Almost wiped this village out. And then the UVC are firing back. 1, 2, 3, 4 firing back, and they are hitting with 6s. So let's just see that. And no, that's nothing. But then the Americans do get to have another turn and try that again. This time with 4 dice. I think it was anyway. Yes, they are firing, so they've got a 4 and a 5 there. So they're firing once again with 5 dice. See if it does anything. And again another dead peasant. But a dead peasant and also 2 kills on the VC, or 2 hits on the VC. I'm going to be running out of peasant casualties at this point. 1, 2 in there. And then those 2 hits on those VC are going to be saving on 3s up. Both failed. So that's 2 more casualties on the VC at least, because this may count towards something at the end of the game, and also just for points, just for kills really at this point. That is pretty much all they're going to do, I think. Yep, that's all they're going to do. I don't know if you can see these guys at the back here. They had already failed, so any morale test doesn't really matter because they've only got 1 action dice, which they are going to use to try to fire at those VC next to them. No, they failed it, so that ends their turn. VC don't fire back. And then finally, for the Americans, is their platoon commander over here. He has 1 casualty. He also has a VC next to him as well. So let's just see, 4, 5, 6s are fails. 1 failure for him. So that brings him down to 6 action dice, which he will use to fire at those VC in front of him. So let's see. Yes, but he's only got 1 shot basically, hitting on a 5 or a 6. It's a 4, so that's a miss. His second action, the VC are going to fire back with 2 hitting on 6s. 1 hit on him. He saves on a 3 up though, 2 up because he's in bamboo and he's a leader. 4, yes, he's saved. He's got 4 more action dice left, which he will try and fire with on his next one. Yes, he's able to do that, firing with 1 dice. It's 3, is a miss. VC fire back with 2 shots on 6s. No, they're missed as well. And the Americans are going to stop the game there. They were down to 3 on the counter, so we're going to stop it, and I will now go on to the victory points and see where... Actually, I'll show you the table and we'll do the victory points. Right, so this is the table at the end of the turn. So we've got a US unit in this jungle down here, holding out against a VC in the village while they were quickly shooting up as many peasants as they could see. They've got the other VC unit had jumped out on the platoon commander. They'd taken some hammering there for them, and then the other final VC unit was attacking that other US unit in the open in the centre, which was quite close to the French plantation as well. There was still a couple of peasants kicking about here and there, not a huge amount more, but we've got, let's just have a quick look, we've got 6 in here, we've got 3 over there, then there's potential of another 6 there, so there is potentially another 12-15 Vietnamese units, I think, that they could actually recruit. So they could have done it, but then we've got a couple of units that disappeared off the table. These were off as well. But let's have a quick look at casualties. So we've had a full unit of US wiped out. That's these ones. Half of another one, and then also from the platoon commander's platoon as well, kind of wiped out there. But then we've also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 dead VC bases and a destroyed cache. Unfortunately for the US though, the VC were able to capture their caches back and disappear off the table with them. Right, let's do the count up and let's see who comes out on point at the end of the game. Rightio, let's do a quick count up then. So first of all, we're going to go through the VC stuff. The player has turned up. Yes, I was here. They get 25 points for that. Each village square not searched, up to a maximum of 7. Well, they didn't search 8 of them, so that's actually a maximum of 7. They get 2 for each of those, so that takes them up to 14. Dead VC NVA. Well, I'll go down both of these. So the players turn. The US don't get anything for that. The dead VC NVA, they get 1 point each for that, so they get 13. So it's worthwhile shooting a lot of them. Dead White Star Raw. No, there isn't any Dead White Star Average. They get 3 points for each of these, up to a maximum of 12. They've got 9, so 9 threes is 27. There's no Dead Star tanks, White Star tanks. There is no carriers, there are no gunships, there's no gun trucks. Dead peasants, however, they're up to a maximum of 8. Now this is where it will count, because the US shot a lot of peasants, if you remember. 6 of them, so that's 6 more points for the VC. So it's not going well for the US at this point, is it? And also, if 4 or more peasants were killed, they get another D6 points for that. So another 4 points. This doesn't look good to the people back home, does it? That's a problem. So for enemy foot units destroyed, up to a maximum of 2. So the VC didn't lose a full unit. The Americans did. They lost 1 full unit, so they get 4. The VC get 4 for that. The Americans don't get any. 4 or more caches found. Yes, they did actually find more than 4. They found 1 low value one and 2 high value ones, and then 1 number 1. So they did find them. So they get 5 points for that. Wow, this is. I don't think this one's going to get a write up in Stars and Stripes, you know. The communists didn't have any gambles. This is basically the communists, their support. They can gamble for it at the start of the game if they want to. I decided not to, so they don't. There's no victory points there. Now we go on to the cash points. We destroyed 1 low value, so they get a 2d6 points for the US, 4 points. However, everything else was lost. So no, they've got one cache. They've got 1 high value cache, so they get 4d6 points for that. So what they really wanted to do was hang on to these caches as long as they could, but they didn't. So let's just see what they get. Anyway, for this, that is 10 points in total. So let's do a quick tot up here. So the VC have got 80 points, the US have got 32 points, and do we have an outcome for that? Let's have a quick look. So the player with the greater number of victory points applies the winner narrative to himself. The other player applies the loser narrative. So the VC had a over 31 points, so a really good win. Large communist body count, no. So if the communist was the winner, we have liberated the area from the imperialists. They shall not torture and abuse our women and children. They are on the run. Victory is deservedly ours. And I think that is probably about right, to be honest, given the very poor situation that the Americans got themselves into in most of that game. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. It's a great little game. It's well worth playing. Check it out on the Peter Pig website. And obviously, if you've enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. It all helps. And of course, I'll see you in the next Storm of Steel video.